Okay. Hello and good evening, magandang gabi. Welcome to the 6th episode of Park Conversations, Math and Philippine Culture, the Art of Indigenous Philippine Weaving, in celebration of National Indigenous Peoples Month this October. So this is brought to you by the National Parks Development Committee, an attached agency of the Department of Tourism, tasked to develop, preserve, and manage Luneta, Paco Park, and other open parks. I'm your moderator for this evening. I'm Jez, and I will be introducing our guest speaker for tonight. We have a very, very special speaker. Let me introduce you to her. Are you okay? Is she here? Okay, she's here. All right, we have joining us for our webisode tonight, we have Professor Maria Louise Antonette de las Peñas, PhD of the Department of Mathematics and she's also the Associate Dean for Research and Creative Work of the Loyola Schools, Ateneo de Manila University. Professor de las Peñas is a recipient of several research awards, including the National Research Council of the Philippines Achievement Award in Mathematical Sciences and Philippine Commission on Higher Education, Republica National Research Award. She also published her research extensively in international and national journals. Book chapters, conference publications, and a number of her published articles have been given recognition by the Philippine National Academy of Science and Technology as outstanding scientific papers. Our esteemed resource speaker for this evening is also an executive member of the International Union of Crystallography, Mathematical and Theoretical Commission, and an international program committee member of the Asian Technology Conference in Mathematics. So concurrent to the above, Professor de las Peñas is also the column editor of the Mathematical Tourist of the Journal of Mathematical Intelligencer and member of the editorial board of the Electronic Journal of Mathematics and Technology. Wow, she has such an impressive background. But before I give the floor to our resource speaker, please be reminded of the following. So tonight's Park Conversations webisode is also streaming live on Facebook through our Facebook page and pdc.ph and will be available on demand after this live discussion. We encourage everyone to share this webinar and ask questions, but please share this with all your friends using the hashtag Park Conversations. Of course, we'd love to hear from you during the live discussion. So again, if you have any questions for our speaker, please send it in the Q&A button for the Zoom participants, or if you're watching from Facebook Live, please submit your questions in the comment section. So we'll do our best to accommodate all the questions subject to the availability of our speaker. And lastly, only those who will successfully answer and submit our online survey will be able to receive a digital certificate. So we will be posting the link to this digital certificate for the digital certificate for the survey after this webinar in the chat box. So please stay tuned for that. So without further ado, let's please welcome here in Park Conversations, Professor de las Peñas.
Hello, good evening to you.
Good evening, good evening.
So how are you?
Good,
so first, I would
good.
like to greet everyone who's in the Zoom meet, as well as everyone watching live. Good evening to everyone. I hope everyone is enjoying their early Friday evening and everyone is doing okay during this time. You know, this time of the new normal. So I'd like to first take this opportunity to thank you, Gaius, Mr. Apelar, for the invitation you have extended to me to talk about mathematics and indigenous fabrics of our indigenous communities here in the Philippines. So I'm very privileged to talk about this and share with you this evening about the work we do in this respect. So do I share my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so let me first share my screen. So one moment, please. So let me. I'm having problem sharing my screen. So
No worries. Take your time. There we go. Wow.
can you see it?
Yes, we can see this. We can see it. Beautiful.
Okay. So let me know if I should start already.
Yes, please. You may begin, Professor.
Okay. So good evening again, everyone. So tonight I'll be discussing with you very quickly and very briefly the work we do on the mathematics of Philippine indigenous textiles. So first, let me give an overview of what I'm going to be discussing today. So I'm going to talk about the textiles from some parts in northern Luzon and going all the way to the works in Mindanao, and also the works from our indigenous communities in Lake Cebu in Cotabato. So, and we all know that there are about 27 or at least 27 indigenous communities in the Philippines. And actually, the evolution of fabric arts have been shaped because of primarily history and geography. So for example, in northern Luzon, so the Cordillera peoples, protected in their part by the location where they have lived, no, have offered a resistance to the Spanish. Consequently, there has been more persistence of traditional arts values and cultural identities in these areas than in the lowlands. So we see a lot of indigenous textile present in northern Luzon, no? The works of the Cordillera peoples. And in the south, the rivalry between the Spanish and the Muslims were important in the preservation of indigenous culture. The Muslims resisted the colonization of Mindanao and were able to prevent the destruction of native arts and crafts, unlike lowland Luzon and the Visayas islands. And as I mentioned earlier, we have the Tibulis from Lake Cebu in South Cotabato. So these are the three areas I'm going to focus in my talk today. So you probably would be curious, how is it possible for us, mathematicians, to study and look at the math in the works of our indigenous communities? Well, as you will see, in the course of this presentation, we have so many beautiful patterns found in the textile created by our indigenous communities. Some are very colorful, and some have patterns with different designs, or we would say motifs, dictated by their culture. And what we do in math is to look at uh, the symmetry, the symmetrical structure of these patterns. Probably when you were a student in elementary, or probably when you were taking geometry in high school, you were taught the concept of a rotation, a reflection. So when you have a center and then you rotate a particular object about the center, uh, and the object will go a certain part in the plane. And you could also consider reflecting an object about a line. So these are what we call transformations in the plane. And mathematically, we say the distance is preserved when we say rotate an object about the plane, or we say we reflect an object. But we also have what we call a translation. What's a translation? So you move a particular object a certain distance in a certain direction, then we say that's a translation. So say, for example, if you move one step to the right, probably 1 foot to the right, that's actually moving your body, translating it 1 foot to the right. So there is a particular distance, you shift given a particular direction. That means you're moving yourself to the right. So that's a translation. Then if you combine a translation with a reflection, that's a glide reflection. So these are the 4 basic movements, which we call symmetries in the plane, and which will send a pattern to itself. So the way we analyze a pattern is based on these kinds of movements or transformations, and determining what these are in a given repeated pattern in textile. And as you will see in the course of my talk, so there are particular classifications that we consider depending on these 4 movements. And it depends on what the pattern is. So here is an example. So you see on the screen, different images of footprints, no? So the first one, you just see a footprint being repeated towards the right. Okay, so there's like a translation of this footprint. You translate. So this is one particular pattern, no? So these are 7 what we call patterns. We call these frieze patterns because the patterns are just strips, no? Strips. So the translation is just to the right or to the left. But sometimes you mix it up with reflections. So you see this jump here. So you see this jump. So it is as if you have, you know, this your left and right foot, and then you jump to the right. So there is that movement. But there's also a reflection between 2 footsteps, because the left can be brought to the right by reflecting along the center. So there are 7 possible types of this kind of pattern where you're talking about strips like this. However, if a translation is upward and to the right perhaps, or the translation is in 2 directions, there are 17 patterns. So you see these ones, there are 17 types. So any pattern on the textile will be one of these 17, okay, or one of these 7. So that means when we analyze a textile, we'll take a look at the pattern. Is it one of these 7, or is it one of the 17? Depending if we are talking about a pattern that covers the whole plane, so it's a planar pattern, or if it is just a strip like this. So then this is how we classify the patterns that appear in the textile. Now, what did we do? So we looked at all the patterns from north to south. We explored representative patterns from museums, from private textile collection of scholars. The Philippine Textile Council and the NCCE provided us with a lot of material. We read through the literature of studies of Philippine textiles, and we supplemented this material with field visits to different indigenous communities. We interviewed weavers. Then that formed the basis of our analysis. Okay, so let me talk first quickly about weaving. So weaving is actually done on a loom, and we can talk about warp threads and weft threads depending on how the threads are positioned in the loom and in relation to the weaver, of course. Now, in the Philippines, I would like to explain that there are these kinds of weaving. So depending on the community and depending on where you are, the north, the south, among the Tibolis. So there is a decorative dyeing. So that means the threads are dyed to produce a design. And I will show this quickly later. Then there are what we call the decorative weaves. What are the decorative weaves? Where the design emerges from the choice of the color and the pattern of the warp over the weft. And there's a supplementary where additional threads are added on the weave itself. And our results here is that depending on the weave, then a particular symmetry will arise. So that's a main result of our study. And of course, it depends on the kind of weaving. These kinds of weaves also are dependent on the tools that the weaver has. No, and again, the pattern, as I will explain in a while, will depend on the culture because most of the patterns there are meanings, no, to the culture, and thus a combination of this type of weaving and the kind of design that emerges in the cloth that will determine the mathematics present. So here you have the Philippine map, and you can see there the red marks will mean that these are the areas where the decorative dyeing technique is found, then the decorative weaving, and then the supplementary weaving. So there you can see that there are areas where there are two types of weaving, no? Such as say in Abra, you can see that there are decorative and there's a supplementary. So let me go first to the decorative dyeing. So an example is the ikat. So among the Tibolis, this is what they do. So the first step is that they are going to create like a sort of knotting process. So you see here this male weaver. He is knotting and binding several threads at certain intervals in this particular template that he's using. And then afterwards, this will be submerged in dye. And the knotted portions which resist the dye, so the pattern will arise. Now, if you are familiar, and you will see now an example, I think you can see here the cloth that is being woven by the lady weaver. The ikat kasi usually comes in three colors. So there is the natural color of the abaca, sort of the creamish white color. And then there is the reddish part. And then there is a third color, like so there is the red and and then the black portion. So the first thing they do is they submerge it first in the black color, and then later afterwards, so they remove the threads, and then uh, take out the threads, they submerge that in red, and then finally what is left is just the threads that are the color of the abaca. Then they lay it out on the loom, and then this is where they weave over, so something like this. So they lay out now the threads that have been dyed, and then they weave over. So there is now a careful count of the weft over the laid out warp thread. So this is how the ikat weavers, this is how the ikat is woven by the weaver. Then afterwards, they shine it to attain a particular glow, as what you see here, and then that's how you obtain the fabric. So, and the Tibolis, they take the pride from the tinalak. So now if you read through the literature on the tinalak, so either the design is passed on from the mother to daughter, one generation to the next. And there are the weavers where the pattern is, the whole pattern is bestowed by the spirit of the abaca by Fudalu in a dream. And that's how they articulate the pattern from memory to loom. So that's why the Tibolis are also called the dream weavers. So it's very interesting that because in mathematics, actually, when you have, like, say, the plane, like you imagine that you have a plane of the paper, no? And you are now trying to fill up this plane by this pattern, which is going to appear in the cloth. So it is like a space filling problem where you fill up the plane by a pattern that repeats. So as you can see from each of these cloths that are being held by each weaver, they represent a design that's repeated and covers the whole rectangular region. So it's a whole process, because that repetition where they're going to tie the knots, they count that with precision. And that is how the symmetry of the pattern will come out. And of course, the counting, as I explained earlier, of the weft over the warp at precise count will bring out the repetition of the pattern. So actually, one of the gawad manlilikha ng bayan is Lang Dulay. She has already passed on, and she knows over 100 designs. And some of the designs I'll be showing to you today is actually passed on from her. So this is one example. So the Tibolis call this Tidanan So. This is the name of the design. And this recreates images of a sleeping python that the weaver saw in a dream. So you see this repetition, and here on the screen, you see that I indicated where the 180-degree rotation is, and where a mirror reflection lies, so that this is the mathematical symmetries present in this pattern. So as you can see, it's very interesting how the weaver articulates this repetition on this particular design. So here is another. So this time the pattern is offered to appease a spirit that causes this disease. So what you see here is some terminology that we use in discrete geometry and mathematical crystallography, that 2 means there's 180-degree rotation. And represents mirror lines. And you can see here that there's a reflection in both directions. If you take this vertical reflection passing through these hexagonal shapes and a horizontal passing to the center of these hexagonal shapes, then these are the two reflection symmetries that you will see here. But you can see how different the repetition is in this particular pattern as compared to what you've seen in this slide, no? So here the reflection is just the horizontal. So, and there are also very interesting what you call these fabrics where they put together different designs. This is an example. So it's made of 3 separate panels, and only the best weavers of the community weave this part. So you can see here the intricacy of the design. So there are 3 panels. So as compared to the ones that I have shown earlier. So this is a picture of myself. I actually tried, because earlier I said, okay, it's counting and so on. So maybe I'll try to try. It's not easy at all. It's not easy at all because it's like I'm fortunate to be able to play the piano. Piano needs a little timing too, you know, when you play. But this one, it's a different because you have to have the presence of mind to be able to also know exactly how to shift gear in terms of where to put the saddle. Okay, you can see here the saddle, where to put that at exactly the right place, and now how to articulate the weft over the warp. It's really not an easy process to bring out the design. So a lot of counting is really done by the weaver in the mind. So I want to show another warp ikat. This one is from the 𝘊𝐵𝑢𝑔𝐲𝑢. So, and you can see here that there is more an articulation of a, so there is an articulation of a particular animal in this design because this is one of the designs that they venerate, you know. So the 𝘊𝐵𝑢𝑔𝐲𝑢. So, and here a different symmetry is found as well. So you can see the difference of the warp ikat from the north and from the Tiboli. So even the color. So as I told you earlier, yung sa Tiboli, they usually have 3 colors like what you see here. There. Now I want to next talk about the decorative weave. No? So this one is from the Paway and the Lawag region in northern Luzon. So as you can see here, that the design emerges from the choice of the color of the patterns. No? So this actually, this particular design is to drive away spirits. But I want to point out to you that you see different shapes of squares and rectangles are being formed. So here there's no dyeing that takes place. Really, this design is brought about by the warp over the weft itself. And what's very interesting about here you see also 180-degree rotations, the oblong shapes, and then the mirror lines are the pink lines. But it's very interesting how the optical, you see the ripples are formed by the way they weave. And it's not also easy to bring this out in the design, but it is attained by different shapes of rectangles. And then the careful putting together of the black and the white threads to come up with these different rectangles. So there. So here is another. So you still see the same ripples. This is actually called the binakol, the whirlwind or the kasikus design. And this is now also brought about differently here as from the one that you've seen earlier. But in both instances, there are the reflection symmetries and the rotational symmetries present there. So you see here the concentric circles that are very accurate on the rectangular grid. There are graduated rectangles that emanate from a central rectangle. And these are the 180-degree rotations and the reflection symmetries and the swirling circles. And you can see a variety, okay, of the binnacle pattern in the Abra province. So these are several examples of this binnacle pattern. And in all of these instances, the mathematical symmetries are the 180 and then the reflection symmetries. So here we visited this master weaver from Poway, and you can see how the weaving takes place. So that's how I explained it earlier. There is the threads, the warp over the weft that exactly make or create the design. So there. So this is my collaborator, Agnes Garciano, also from Ateneo. So interviewing the count of the threads here. So you can see that there is another kind of pattern because this pattern is sort of back to back. There is, as you can see, the red and the white seem to supplement each other. One is the front and one is the back. So they call this decorative weave also face-to-face pattern. So there is also here a reflection symmetry and a 180-degree rotation symmetry. So here is more of this back-to-back pattern. So you can see the one on the left is the front and the one on the right is the back. And you can see there how we laid out the symmetries. So actually that small rectangular region is the smallest region that we see in the pattern. And this is how we determine the symmetry group. We try to determine the positions of the 180-degree rotations and where the reflection symmetries lie there. So now in Northern Luzon, aside from the decorative weave, there's also what we call the supplementary thread. So the Itnegs or the Tingyans, they use this kind of weaving. So actually, they have different types of cloth. There's called the dinapat, the pinilian, and what you see at the back portion here is some examples of these. Actually, the shots that you see from this, from my slide, some of these are with permission from Sinaunang Habi. So I got some of and from the Dreamweaver's book. So I got permission to use some of these images, which I use in my slides today, but some are supplemented by our actual photos. So here in the north, they use the textile for funerary textile or to celebrate harvest. So please be careful when sometimes you buy woven fabrics from Northern Luzon. In Baguio, you might go to Baguio, you might start buying so many of these textile, and some of these are actually used for funerary purposes. So please be careful sometimes of what you buy. So this is one way that they weave. So it's called the backstrap loom. So then once you have the woven fabric there, then they weave on top. So this is one example, the pinilian. So you can see here that there are the yellow thread on top of the woven fabric. So that's why it's called supplementary, because they supplement the woven fabric with another layer of threads, which will bring out the design. So this is what happens here. There is the supplementary weft that produces the yellow and the white design on the woven fabric. So you can see the difference versus itong kanina, which I showed. The design is actually, there's no supplementary weft here. It is actually brought out by the warp and the weft, when they weave. So that's the difference. Dito, they supplement it with an additional layer. That's why it's called a supplementary. And you can see that they really count, no? Here you see the 15 different horizontal weft configurations that are employed in a repeated sequence to form up this whole design there. And so this is another example. So this one is some images of a horse with the rider and another animal, which is also the horse. And this one has meaning to them. In the olden times, I was told by Dr. Amores, who is an anthropologist and one of my collaborators. I think this also has a meaning when before they would, you know, the rider and his horse would go to battle. So there is a reason for this design, no? So here is a design, and you can see that there is the yellow and the white parts, and then there are two kinds of motifs. The one that I labeled in purple, and this is how they repeat it, like in rectangular grids to fill up the plane, no? So, and I show you there the reflection symmetries, the 180-degree rotations. So these are really common in this kind of weaves, no? There. So here is more of the pinilian. So, and according to the weavers in the Cordilleras, this is one of the most technically difficult to weave. Actually, this particular design, I do not think they do this anymore nowadays, no? So I would also like you to invite you to UP Baguio. There is a museum there, the Cordillera Museum. You can actually see a lot of the Northern Luzon textile there, no? So here, this is the dinapat. And here is another textile. So you can see these triangular regions that they created. So this is really the supplementary weft. So these triangular regions, they weave over the actual material itself. And it's very interesting. So I put here the symmetries as well there. Now I would like to discuss with you now the weavings from the people of Southern Mindanao and the Sulu Archipelago. So the Tausugs and the Yakans, for example. Now, what's very interesting about the Yakan, because they use, they weave for headgear, okay? And then they have a wrap-around skirt, and then they have the pants with elaborate and colorful designs. This is actually really because in their culture, the more colorful the design is, they like it better. So unlike earlier, right, I explained to you the Tiboli, they only use 3 colors because the 3 colors, according to them, those are the colors that for in their culture represents the different stages in life. So there is the death, and there is birth, and so on. So the Yakan naman, so many colors. As the more colors, the better for them, no? So then they use what we call discontinuous supplementary weft. So they still have the supplementary weft that they supplement, no, on top of the fabric, but they cut. So something like this. So you can see that they cut. So when they cut, then they can insert also the threads. Thus, they can put more colors. Unlike earlier, when I was talking about the weaving in Abra, so there was now the loom, so that when they weave the binakol, they're restricted only to 2 colors, no? 2 or 3 colors at most. But here, because they can cut, then they can add more colors. So they can create beautiful headgears, very colorful like this. They call this the saputangan. Now, in this handkerchief or this headgear, mathematically, this is just a finite pattern. So there is also a different symmetry group that we use to describe this. Okay, so here, so you can observe here in the Saputangan that there are four corners, no? There are squares there in each corner, and then there is like a center square. And there are four rectangular areas in the four corners of the headgear. So this is really how they weave. And each of these squares that you see are intricately woven with also a mathematical symmetry. Sometimes there are symmetries as well. So here is another Saputangan, and you can see, as I explained, the four corners and then the four horizontal strips in each corner. So there. So, and each of these has a symmetry, 90 degrees, then reflection symmetries, 180, and so on. So this is how we look at the pattern mathematically. So here is the Yakan cloth. It's called 𝘙𝘪𝘴𝘠. I find this very interesting because they can repeat the leaf that's colored yellow, green, and then there are the portions that are red and blue of exactly the same count and different colors. So here I would like to say that in mathematics, we also have what we call a color symmetry, where aside from the rotation or the reflection, it's combined with a change in color. So, and the Yakans can articulate this kind of color symmetry as well in the designs that they create. So even in the pants, like what you see here, there you can see now the reflection symmetries on the right side. Now, I'd like to go last to the 𝘓𝑠𝑢𝐺𝑠 because they do what you call a tapestry weave. Very interesting as well. And still this continues because they also cut, no? But this is exactly how the weave, you know, you can see here the interlocking of the weave. So this is how they put together the different colors. So interesting. And you see here a waistband. So you can see here the different patterns, okay, articulated throughout the cloth. Some in a repeating pattern, such as what you see in the center, and then there are those that are finite designs at what you see in the bottom. So there. But this is just one whole waistcloth. So you can imagine the intricacy of the design that they created, no? The counting involved here on the weave to bring out the different colors. So here I'm just illustrating how very rich the mathematical symmetry is present here. No? There. So then here I wanted to talk more that there's also the 𝑃𝑆𝑖𝑎𝑏𝑖𝑡, the 𝘓𝑠𝑢𝐺𝑝 𝑃𝑆𝑖𝑎𝑏𝑖𝑡, something similar to the Yakan Saputangan. And you can see here that they also have four regions in the corners. There's a central panel, a central region, and then they also have the four rectangular regions at the sides. So here I just like, because I'm running out of time, here you can just see how we have done our analysis of the different patterns here, there. And I want to emphasize that there is the different symmetries depending on the region. No? There, I won't want to dwell much on this, but this is just to tell you how rich the mathematical structure of this symmetry, of these patterns. So we have accounted everything here, and this is our result. And this is one Yakan textile, which is very rich in color symmetry. That, as you can see here, there are the green regions, the yellow regions, and the pink regions that have different colors, right? But they are exactly of the same size and the same shape. And when we perform a 180-degree rotation, for example, in a particular center, you can see that some regions colored pink will be sent to another region colored pink. And this in the mathematics is called the color symmetry. No? We say that the symmetry fixes the colors, and that's so we see a lot of these in the yakan and the tausu. So here is another yakan textile with color symmetry. So I'd say I would like to end my talk here. What I have shown you right now is that depending on where you are in the Philippines, there are 3 different kinds of weave, and each kind of weave brings out a different mathematical structure. So I guess I will end my talk here, and thank you for listening. So that's me in Lake Cebu.
Wow.
Okay,
Beautiful.
so when we visited
Wow.
the area, so there. So I guess that's just I didn't want to
Ang
dwell much on the math, but I
ganda.
hope somehow I've shown you just like what is the process involved when we analyze it, no? You know, and mind you,
Mhm.
those groups that I showed you earlier, whatever, they are very theoretical, and to see them being present in the works of our communities, it really tells you that math can be found anywhere, diba?
Yes, yes,
Everywhere,
definitely.
and then created
Everywhere.
by indigenous communities that most of them naman, they don't actually realize the richness of the structures that they are creating, no? Because you know what, I want to just highlight further that those rotations, reflections, they are the same symmetries that also occur in crystal structures, diba? So that
Yeah.
now you can it's the same way to classify crystal structures, no? We use the same kind of methodology, and for it to be present in the works of our weavers, it really tells you a lot about their talent. So yun.
Amazing.
So do you
Amazing.
have questions? Yeah,
Amazing.
maybe you have some.
Yes, yes, we have definitely we have some questions from our viewers, and but I do have some questions as well from myself. But do you see? Is this the
Okay.
P2MM? I'm wearing yakan right now for.
Oh, cool. Well, I just wanted to show this kasi I really like this. Well, everything naman I like, no? Kasi ito yung sa
Mhm,
tinalak,
mhm,
you know. You like this
mhm.
one sa yaka. So very colorful symmetries, no? Ito talaga yung isa sa
Yes.
favorite ko. This is, I want to say thank you to Floyd Quintos who actually talaga ang dami niyang collectors
Mm,
items sa mga
mm.
isa tong candidate na to sa isa sa mga pinaka-rare
Wow,
na
wow.
na I think he displayed this in the Vargas Museum noong 2014 o 2015 nagkaroon siya ng exhibit
Okay.
doon na ano. So, yun, isa to sa mga collection ni Floyd.
Yeah.
So, thank you Floyd for sharing with us. Kasi yan si Floyd talagang ano yan. Lahat na makailangan namin ng mga materials really. At saka si Dr. Respicio, Dr. Norma Respicio, yung iba ng mga pinakita ko ngayon galing din sa kanya. Kasi si Dr. Norma is a professor emeritus from UP Diliman. And ano din yan siya
Mm,
talagang collector siya ng mga tela, no? At saka lahat ng mga ito, alam na alam nito mga kwento ng mga weaving, paano na wini-weave. So,
mhm, mhm.
in-interview din namin siya ng matagal. And because of them, we were able to really understand more, no? Behind each weave and
Mhm,
bakit ganun
mhm,
yung symmetry na lumalabas. Yeah, go
mhm,
ahead. Do
mhm.
you have
Beautiful,
questions
beautiful.
or?
Like sure. So from a mathematical perspective, so would you say that the ones from southern Mindanao are most intricate or most complex? Would like from a mathematical perspective?
Actually, I can, if you take a look at this, no? So these are these
These
are
are all.
some of the groups that these are what we found. So you would see that iba-iba, no? Iba-iba depende sa weaving. So kung makita mo yung red, blue, and green, so depende kung ano yung kind of weave. So this one shows you kung gaano yung nakita namin, no? Yung prevalence. So, and hindi mo naman ma-compare, no? Which ones are more intricate than another, no? Pero maybe ang answer ko dyan, ano yung rare? Ano yung rare? So yung rare kasi, yung isa sa mga rare na makikita mo, itong klase ng structure na ito, na tinatawag naming rhombic ang unit, parang rhombus. So ito, present kasi ito sa tinalak. Now, bakit siya makikita doon? It's really because yung kinuwento ko kanina mga knotting that takes place. So they knot it and then dinadye. So ito yung isa sa mga reasons bakit lumilitaw ang symmetries na to. At hindi mo ito makita sa mga decorative weaving. Unlike yung P2MM, sobrang yon. Ito medyo rare to.
Rare.
Medyo rare to. So doon yun sa ikat sa nakikita, you know. At saka kasi yung ikat din, yung mga parang walang dalawang duplicate talaga na design. Oo, kasi walang duplication. So yun. Unlike kasi minsan dun sa katulad nito, you can see this leaf design in different forms, no? Sa yakan. So you would say na itong may makita kang ganito na more than one, no? Than once now.
Right.
So yun, iba-iba yung design sa tinala. Pero ito kasi mahirap din yan gawin kasi may color symmetry dito, no? Hindi din present sa tinala. So you cannot compare which is more intricate kasi mathematically iba-iba din siya. Kasi sa color symmetry, walang color symmetry doon sa work ng tinalak, but very much common dito. When I say color symmetry, yung when you rotate or reflect, iba yung kulay na lalabas. Kasi kung mapansin mo dito, babalik tayo sa kunyari sa tinalak, no? Nasaan na ba yung example ko ng tinalak? Kung titingnan mo kasi to, lahat ng one kind is the same color, has the same color. So if you see a particular shape, everything is color cream or cream combination with red, di ba? So they don't have the same design na ibang color. So that's what's different dito. The leaf may yellow, green. Ayun. Tapos itong pattern na to may blue and red. So yun yung difference na. So kaya may color symmetry ito. So kaya I would say intricate din ito in a different sense.
In a different sense.
So you cannot compare. You cannot compare kung ano yung mas interesting mathematically. Actually, yung mga estudyante ko, iba-iba ang paborito nila. So di ba, depende. Yung isa sasabihin, ito ma'am ang gusto ko. Ito yata napakahirap. Sasabihin naman, ito yung tingin ko ganyan. So lahat talaga.
Which one speaks to you the most? Which one is your personal favorite?
So which your one personal is favorite? My personal favorite, yun, yung sinabi ko kanina, yung sa yakan. Yung yakan, yung 𝐿𝐴𝐧𝐝 𝐏𝐡𝐢𝐥𝐢𝐩𝐃. Ito yung gusto ko talaga to. Kasi biruin mo
I've never seen this.
Ito, tingnan mo yan, tingnan mo yung pattern.
Ganda.
Sa likod, nagbabago pa siya. Nagbabago pa siya.
Sa likod.
So minsan, kung gagamitin mo siya, depende kung ano yung sa harap, di ba, magbabago. Depende. Tapos yung kulay, so syempre kasi tayo, minsan gusto din natin gamitin accessory. Kahit anong kulay ng top mo, pwede mo yan gamitin. Yes. Pwede mo pa yan gamitin na parang sablay dito. Gusto ko talaga siya. Pero Pero si Floyd piece, ay kung may ibang ganito na design. Ang ganda kasi it changes the color and then you can see from here, there, na iba-iba yung pattern niya, no? So tapestry to ng Taosu. Tapestry weave. Tapos ang ganda ng tela nito, napaka-smooth. Oo, maganda siya. So ito gusto ko to. I like this one.
First time ko makita to. Yeah. It's nice to see talaga like the greater appreciation now for the weaves, no? All the hobby fairs and you know, in the last I'd say the last couple of years talagang there's been our local weaves, so I'm very happy now. I have a deeper appreciation talaga of what's local and what's ours.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sobrang,
I have another question for you.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So how did you actually get interested in mathematics, and what led you to do research, particularly with textiles, Philippine textiles? Could you talk about your journey? Sorry.
Yeah, well, several factors.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. So several. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Choppy ba? Can you?
Yes. Can you?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Hello? How about me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay. So,
nope, you're good. Yes.
One of the factors that one of the factors why I went into this, no. Actually, well, earlier when you mentioned my CV, I'm a mathematician by training, and I do study a lot of pattern and repetition as they appear in geometric objects, as what I explained earlier, say crystal structures. So I study tilings, patterns, repetition, no, the algebra of it. So then when I see this thing, so I'm very curious how the weaver can articulate the repetition itself as well. Paano ba nila yan ginagawa? So yun, very curious ako. And then there was one conference that I attended in in Kansas, the US, na layo. Actually in Wichita, Kansas. In yata year 2000, 2001 or something. And then yung isang geometer doon, galing daw siya sa isang trip sa Fiji. So naging immersed siya doon sa culture nila. And meron siyang mga kinwento sa akin ng mga na they studied particular fabrics of the people in Fiji. So then ang sinabi niya sa akin, you know what? In the Philippines, I have heard, sabi ng geometer, na there are so many works of your indigenous communities. So then, syempre, 2000 pa yun. So that when I sort of remember that conversation I had with Professor Donald Crow. He does these things too. But doon sa Africa, nag-aral siya ng mga ganito. Then sabi ko, siguro it's about time aralin din namin yung sa Philippines. So we started in 2013 doing this one with my collaborators in Ateneo. But we started with maths, mga banig. Yun yung yun yung we started. Then we went to textile. So ngayon yung inaaral namin are the baskets naman. Yun naman yung inaaral namin ngayon. So I also collaborated before with Dr. Annalyn Amores from UP. So inaaral din namin yung mga tattoo ni 𝐷𝘪𝘴. So yun, kasi very symmetrical din yun. So then I guess now what interests me is next yung baskets, and then maybe the next thing will be yung music naman. So it will really be a whole,
wow.
It will be a whole,
Wow.
the whole cultural landscape of works of our indigenous communities. So from mats to textile to baskets, then to music. So yun. So I guess so that will be so that really interests me because nga of the repetition, the nature of pattern recognition, and then pattern repetition. So which is really what I study in mathematics, no? Yung area ko talaga, yun. Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Amazing. Has the mathematics changed due to... Hi, could you hear me? Nawala ba ako?
Okay.
Hello?
Come again. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah,
yes, I can hear you. I can hear you clearly.
Yeah.
Even though you're... Hello?
Hello, yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you're back. So I can hear you clearly now. Yes. Perfect. The next question is, has the math or the designs changed due to the influence?
Hello, I can't hear you.
Hello? Sorry, nawala tayo.
Hello.
Yes,
can you hear
I can
me?
hear you. I can hear you.
I changed internet.
Okay. Okay.
Kasi ang hirap, kasi I changed, now it's better, no?
Yeah, you're good. You're good. We can hear you clearly. Okay lang yan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so going back to my question, to my other question is, has the math or the designs changed due to recent influences or technology?
Definitely, yes. Actually, that's what I want to point out, because what we studied is really more the indigenous. So meaning we did not study we really made sure that we just look at the ones that are indigenous, meaning wala yung influence ng mga modern but maraming combination. So that's the result of technology, and of course the weaver also are exposed to different kinds of design, so they tend to how do I call this? Change a little bit, no? Change a little bit the design.
Right,
that's why we see sometimes that there are more, more different motifs, or a combination of different motifs.
Right.
Yeah, but although there are those that remain true to the design, no? Kaya I understand yung National Commission for Culture and the Arts, they have the School of Living Tradition, because they want to preserve the design, di ba? Para na they will use the same patterns or the same designs.
That's true. And
Although
even the
talagang a lot, yeah. And also and then the weavers actually they tell us this one that there are other weavers, they would not anymore go at length to create the more difficult designs because it takes more time away from their telenovela or the texting
yeah,
or the ganon. So as long as of course they can sell some of
they
the
can sell.
things. So there are those that they produce those that are easier to weave in terms
Mm,
of the design.
mm, mm, mm,
So
mm.
so that's why the other more intricate designs, it's hard to find
Yes,
unless
yes,
they really put their mind into it. Because some of these designs, they take months to create, diba?
yes, yes.
So, and sometimes if you want to sell certain objects, or maybe people are also buying and then they get orders,
Mm, mm, mm,
so
mm.
they sometimes do not anymore do the
The more intricate
the more,
ones.
yeah. Kasi before, when they weave, parang they don't want to weave these not difficult designs, no? I
Yes.
mean, before the weavers,
Mm-hmm.
nung mga sinaunang panahon. Because ano nila yan eh, pride, di ba? Pride.
Mm-hmm.
They weave is a source of pride. And then not everyone can weave, di ba? Not
Right.
everyone can weave in the community. That's why they have to come up with a very, very intricate and yun yung ano. So now, in modern times, yun yung
You need to.
nangyayari.
Yeah,
Not
that's
all, pero maraming ganon. Yung
right.
weavers are the ones themselves who tell us that one when we interview them.
And I think also the availability of the raw materials, no?
So that's one
That's
thing.
also
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
also an issue.
yeah. That's another thing. Actually, one of the master weavers that I met, no, si Janet Hanapi, pero banig siya. So yung likod ng bahay niya, ang daming pandanus. So
Mm-hmm.
talagang talaga kasi 'di ba they use that
Panda
pandan
leaves.
sa pandan mat, pandan leaf.
Mm.
So yun, sa bahay niya ang hahaba ng mga
Wow.
oo, kasi syempre so yung iba yata talaga binibili na lang nila yung
Binibili na lang.
material, 'di ba? Oo.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yung mga
interesting.
weavers sa Northern Luzon kunyari.
Mm. Very, very interesting.
Binibili na lang nila yung material nila.
Okay.
So,
I'm sure this is such an interesting, I mean, like you're also doing field work, you're going out, you're meeting with them, you're
yes. So,
yeah.
so unfortunately nga now we cannot do that because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But before that's it was very interesting because lalo na when you see them weave, 'di ba? You and another thing that, for example, if we have a pattern that we have in mind, so tatanong ko, eto bang ganitong pattern, can you weave this? They say, hindi yan kakasya dito sa ganyan, or hindi yan possible. So, and then I know mathematically na hindi siya possible, no? Pero hindi din talaga nila ma-articulate in the design.
Yeah.
Given the material that they have.
That's interesting.
So it's interesting to see that sasabihin nila, we cannot do that because of this.
Fantastic.
And then of course, we know that you cannot do that because of this. Because the mathematics will not allow it to happen.
It's not, yeah.
Diba? Kasi when you combine...
Parang they just know it, not, you know.
Oh, kasi you can only cover a plane with a particular
they just naturally
pattern.
know it.
They just naturally know it. So, parang very interesting in that sense. Yeah.
That's amazing. Intuitive, parang.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just by experience.
So I'm also glad that a lot of things like this show.
You know that today is also.
What's that?
Sorry, nagcha-chop.
No.
Go ahead, continue. Sorry.
So, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I was saying that
Yep.
I'm
Yes, I can
happy
hear
that
you.
a lot of people are really uh, putting also attention to the work that they do. Just like this show, for example, diba? So you have this show, and
Yes,
then
yes.
the other day there's also the show from NCCA that highlight the works of the indigenous community. So I'm happy to hear that. Kaya kami also in the academy, when we hope that when we teach geometry objects, we show their works, when we teach, so that the students, they can find also more
Mm.
appreciation in what is being done by the indigenous community.
Of course, today is
Hello.
also World Food Day. Did you know that?
Oh, really?
So,
Really?
what indigenous food have you tried? Yeah. So, what indigenous food did you try that is memorable to you in your field visits?
Actually,
Indigenous
baka
food.
hindi more Actually, hindi ko siguro alam yung pangalan. I can't remember. Na, well, kasi I come from Zamboanga, di ba? I
Yes,
think you
yes,
know.
yes.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yung ano ng mga Yakan, yung Yakan village, yung ano doon, malapit lang yun sa dating bahay namin sa may Kalarian
Candelaria.
sa
Candelaria.
Zamboanga.
Yeah.
Kalarian sa Zamboanga.
Mm-hmm.
So, yung mga kinakain nila doon, mga kakanin or kung ano yung kinakain nila. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
those are also among the things that we grew up with. Kinakain din
Mm-hmm.
namin yun noon.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes.
So actually, sabi ko nga, dati tinitake for granted ko lang, malapit lang yung Yakan village sa amin. E di dapat talagang almost every day pumunta ako doon para tingnan paano sila nagwi-weave, di ba?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oo.
That's so
Yeah, but
true. That's so true.
we don't stay in Zamboanga anymore. So
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Yeah. I for me, I like the lokot lokot.
so so yeah, so that's one, no? Oo.
Yeah, yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. So we are just very grateful for for you and for sharing your wonderful insights and your research with us. We're really here to promote our culture, and we really thank you for being a part of that and sharing this with us tonight. So
Yeah.
yeah, really an honor. Really, I'm really happy to really see this.
So I hope so anyway, if they have questions for people who are listening right now, just email me. So maybe they can get in touch with you somehow, or FB or what. Or they can just look for me
Mm-hmm.
sa Ateneo website. So I'm with the math department. So you can find me naman among the roster of faculty members in the math department. So if
Wonderful.
people are interested more about knowing the mathematics in the works of the indigenous communities, so you can. I also have a lecture that just came out, so they can search for it in YouTube. It's called Weaving Mathematics.
Okay.
It's I talked about more about the Tinalak weaving there. So if you're interested.
Fantastic, fantastic. Again, on behalf of NPDC for National Parks, thank you so much, Professor de las Peñas, for joining us this evening.
So thank you very much for inviting me, and
Yes, yes.
I wish you more power, your program, and also everything that you do for the indigenous communities in the Philippines and for tourism and everything. So thank you so much. at least now during the time of the pandemic, there are these kinds of shows, diba? Because people are
Exactly.
at home and,
Yes.
so thanks a lot for the opportunity and take care,
Take
everyone.
care.
Stay safe, be happy.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. Thank you very
Yeah, thanks
much.
a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye bye, bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. And thank you
Bye-bye.
also to all our Zoom and Facebook Live participants for joining us and making Park Conversations, Math and Philippine Culture, the Art of Indigenous Philippine Weaving episode a success. So please don't forget to check your chat box in the comments section for the survey link.